Hello and welcome to Merryweather Knitting. My name is Gabriella and I'm coming to you from my home in Germany, where I'm so excited to chat with you today about knitting and crafting and all that I've been up to lately in my creative life. It's been a while since I sat down with you to chat about my knitting and my crafting, but I'm so excited to be here and I'd love to hear what you're working on right now. Maybe you're knitting on something as we sit together. I love to knit and watch podcasts, so maybe you're doing the same, and if that's the case, please let me know what you're working on. We just got home from a trip to the North Sea for a little holiday trip. We haven't been there for over 2 years. The last time we went to the North Sea was when I was pregnant with my daughter Esmeralda, who's now 2, and it was so special to be able to take a little trip away for a while. For about 10 days we were gone. We went to the island Sylt, which is just a little island right off the coast of Germany in the North Sea. It's technically Germany, but when you go to the very northern point of the island, you are kind of in Denmark, technically, because your phone will alert you, welcome to Denmark, which is very, very cool. But yeah, my husband has been going there since he was a little boy. I think my parents-in-law have been going there for years and years and years before my husband Nick was born, and it's just a beautiful place. It's so peaceful and calm, and I'm sure Germans will know about Sylt. It's a pretty, I would say, kind of like a popular holiday destination, but at the same time, it seems, especially when you go at a time of year like the springtime, or we often go in the very early spring. When I've gone with his parents and they like to go in the very early spring, it's not too busy, it's pretty quiet and just really beautiful. And what's really special about it is that because it's like an island, right? It's like the shape of it. One side is facing towards the coast and the other side is facing just toward the sea. And on the seaside, the waves are just really wild and really rugged and really just sea-like, just this really raw North Sea kind of weather and waves. And on the other side of the little island, the waves are kind of, there aren't that huge of waves. And during the day when it's low tide, the water just goes very, very far back. And there's just feels like miles, but it's not really miles and miles, but there's just a long, long stretch of then low tide. The word in German is the Watt. I don't know what it is in English. It's like just kind of the bare sea floor. Not really, it's kind of just the beach. I don't know what the word is. If I find out what it is, I'll try to translate it and put it here. But it's so much fun to walk there, and during low tide, just wander very deep, very wide into kind of just that sandy area and find seashells and little crabs and just discover all kinds of wonderful, cute little creatures. We loved doing that with Esmeralda because obviously at this time of year, it's not really the time where you would want to go swimming in the cold, freezing North Sea. But we take our rain boots and we just go out there and spend a lot of time walking. We spent a lot of time just in nature, in the sandy dunes, just in kind of nature parks or just on the beach, walking and just looking for little treasures and watching the seagulls and just spending time in the fresh air, which is so good and it was so wonderful. And so I didn't do very much knitting there actually in the end. I always think I'm going to do a lot of knitting when I go on holiday, and for some reason I don't end up doing that much knitting often, unless I go somewhere or were to do something where I would be chilling out a lot, but I don't tend to do that. We mostly like to go get outside. And then also, I think having a little child makes it difficult because there was one afternoon, the last afternoon that we were there on the island of Sylt, where it was sunny. Actually, the whole entire week we were there was beautiful weather. It was so sunny, which is, I feel like, not always the case in springtime. For obvious reasons, just that's not the weather there at that time of year. And actually, we like that. We like the stormy weather. We like the rain. And maybe if we had to be inside a bit more, I would have gotten more knitting done. But there was one afternoon, it was so lovely and warm. It was I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 degrees Celsius in the sun. And on that afternoon, I just sat in the sunshine and I just knit a little bit while Esmeralda played with her grandparents, and while she played with just Nick, he looked for in the vat in this like low tide for lots of little treasures. It was just so much fun. And so that was my one outdoor knitting time. And other than that, I didn't do much outdoor knitting. I just did, here and there, little bits. On the drive I did some knitting, but for some reason the time just got away from me. And I also think, I've noticed in general this happens to me. Often it's also like at home, I'm in this rhythm where there are just certain parts of my day that I like to pick up my project and just get a few rows in, or, in the evening, I like to just get in maybe an hour or two of knitting if I can, if I'm not too tired. It's something I really enjoy, and when I'm away from home, those rhythms just all kind of go up in the air. So yeah, I'm definitely a home knitter, but I'm going to talk more about personal things, personal updates later. I'd love to just share with you kind of other thoughts I've had and things, especially about my pregnancy, which maybe you can't tell right now from this spot. And actually, you can't really tell when I'm wearing this sweater, but this has become my new go-to sweater right now. It's still pretty chilly outside, and this sweater is like the perfect heavy layer to just wear as an outdoor sweater. And today it's kind of cold, so I'm wearing it indoor too, and I wanted to share it with you because I knit this for Nick at the end of 2020, I think. I think I was knitting on it around Christmas time, and I shared the process on this podcast. It was my very early episodes, but it's now become a sweater that I've been stealing a lot lately because it's just very big, and I have quite a belly now at this stage, and it's just really a perfect size for me. I can fit in it, it's cozy and comfy, and it's very oversized. As you can see, it's pretty massive on me. But I love to wear it with like a turtleneck like this, or I've been wearing a lot of like white button-up oversized shirts, and I really just love throwing this sweater on top of those things. I think it's really cozy and kind of cool, and the color palette is pretty neutral. It's just black and gray. But this is the Spearheads sweater, I believe, by Jared Flood. And this pattern is a wonderful pattern. For a first time colorwork sweater, it could be a great project. This wasn't my first colorwork sweater, but it would be a perfect project for someone who wants to kind of just try out colorwork knitting for the first time, or try out, a yoked construction with colorwork, because it's very simple. There are just two colors, and this is knit with pretty heavyweight yarn. I think it's bulky, or maybe Aran, but I think it's bulky. I knit mine out of Alafoslopi, but the pattern calls for another yarn, but this is Alafoslopi yarn, and it's extremely warm and actually extremely soft now after being worn quite a bit. And this sweater was a really special project because I knit it with this yarn, which was not the called for yarn, and I knit it kind of with the expectation that it might be a project that I could experiment filling with, or felting. I think the real term is called fulling, I think, which is when you intentionally like agitate and then kind of shrink or mold a piece of knitted fabric, like a fabric piece. Whereas felting, I think, is usually when you take wool itself and then felt it. But, I think for the sake of this, I'll also use the word felting. So I wanted to felt a project, or full a project, because I had seen other knitters doing it. I really liked the effect it had. I liked the idea that doing a little bit of fulling to a sweater, for example, or another accessory would give it a bit more of a windproof kind of a thing and could make extra warm. I just liked that idea because I thought it would be really fun. And so I thought that this Lopi project could potentially be a really fun one for that. And so I didn't really knit a gauge swatch for this project. I let myself just knit it. I knit it for my husband, Nick. And in the end, it was big as I kind of expected it to be. I wasn't so sure. It was kind of an experiment. I was kind of like, as I knit it, I kind of gave up on the fulling idea. Long story short, I ended up doing it for the first time. I ended up really diving in, and it was kind of, at the time, I think a little bit also of a rescue project because I wasn't so sure, but it turned out amazing, and he has worn this sweater so much since I knit it for him. It's been one that in the really colder months he's loved so much because he can layer it under his coat, or he can keep it just this piece alone. Like right now, it's warm enough for just going outside. If it's not freezing, it's pretty solid and a little windproof because of that fulling, and it's just really lovely. And this Alafoslopi is, of course, by nature very warm, and yeah, just the Icelandic yarn and Icelandic sheep's wool is very warm in general. And so yeah, I also like the Spearheads. My husband also liked it. He actually chose this pattern for himself. I try to help let him choose or show him options when I knit him a sweater, because I always want him to wear it. And so far, he's loved wearing everything I've knit him. So that is successful. That is a very big successful feat, I think, and I hope it stays that way. But yeah, this is the Spearheads by Jared Flood, and I'm loving wearing it right now as my belly continues to grow. But okay, I'm gonna show you now my knitting, and I have a very exciting thing, which is a half object to share with you this week in my beautiful Noble Character Crafts project bag. You can hear I have something in there which is making noise, and that is this beautiful little tin of mints, which I got on the island of Sud at an import, kind of one of these little import shops that are these, how would you call it? A special delicacy kind of imported food shop. And it wasn't imported very far because it's from France, but it was just beautiful. I love these kinds of shops where they have imported food and little treats and little candies. And I know this brand because I've seen it before in our town. At one shop they carry these little mints, and I really like the ones that I've tried before, which are, I tried the one with anise flavor and has a little bit of anise in the middle, star anise, I think. And all of the covers, the tins, they look like little fairy tale pictures, which I think is so beautiful and romantic and just so gorgeous. And I love a mint tin. I think it's so beautiful. So this one I saw, which I thought looked so beautiful, I'd never seen before, and it's rose flavored mints. It says rose sweets, and it really tastes like rose. It's super intense, so if that's not your thing, you probably wouldn't like this. I love floral teas. I love florally things in general, and floral sweets. I know that in certain cuisines, flower water is often used in sweets and in different dishes. One of my closest friends is Syrian, and she often uses orange blossom water and rose water for certain little desserts, and it's just super delicious and wonderful. And so I love all kinds of floral flavors, and I also like edible flowers too, but that's kind of a different category too. I think this is very rose, not just a little hint of floral. It tastes like perfume. It's natural rose extract that is giving it that scent. My husband was like, it tastes like eating someone's perfume. And I thought that was super funny, but I really love this flavor of this mint. But I'm going off track a little. So back to the knitting. This is the finished sock I have. One sock. So half object, but this project has been such a long time coming, such a labor of love, and I'm only halfway through, but it feels so good to be halfway through. And this is the pair of vanilla socks I'm knitting for my father-in-law. It is kind of a half scrappy sock because I'm using scraps for the whole thing, but it's a big chunk of scraps, if that makes sense. It's a big amount. And so I've got a different color for the cuff, the heel, and the toe. Those are all actually the same colorway, but that was a little scrap I had, and I hope I have enough for the other sock to do the same amount. But then I have this main color here, which is kind of a cool, groovy, wonderful, almost looks like self-striping colorway, but it just turned out that way. I think it's technically kind of a variegated yarn, and it kind of just with my gauge and everything turned out to look almost self-striping, which I like a lot. I think it looks cool, and Nick is a little bit jealous of this colorway for his dad's socks, but yeah, hopefully these fit his dad. If they don't, we're gonna be in trouble. I don't know what we're gonna do if they don't fit his dad. I'm gonna be pretty disappointed, but let's just hope they do. And if not, I'll knit another pair, but I'll choose a different colorway and maybe make it a little bit more exciting than just vanilla. Although I do like vanilla socks. Lately I've needed some texture in my life, and yeah, but they fit Nick, so I'm hoping they fit his dad too. And I stopped knitting with this colorway quite a bit before I did the toe decreases, because I was worried that I wouldn't have enough of this colorway to do the next sock. I haven't measured. I should probably weigh the yarn that I have and weigh the sock just to see and compare, but we're just gonna kind of wing it and hope it works out. And it looks cool. I think it looks good so far. So I'm happy with this vanilla sock, and I've not cast on the next one. That was what I did in the week leading up to our vacation time. I just kind of knit this finished and was like, I just need to have this finished by the time we leave, and then when I come back I can cast on the next one, but I don't want to knit on this project while I'm away. And I didn't, and that was very nice. I have to tell you, I loved it. So that's my first little sock project, and I have another sock project to share with you. I guess I'll show you that next, because that makes sense to share the socks all at once. Maybe if you're a fan of socks, you'll be interested in this part of the video. Yeah, but this is my next little project that's been my absolute joy. I'm obsessed with this project right now. I love it. It is just so much fun to knit on, and I think it's because I've kind of just hit my stride and I figured out what I want for this pattern. And this pattern and this project has been one that's been on my needles for months and months. I cast it on months and months ago, and I started knitting and experimenting with it, but I just didn't kind of find what I wanted. I didn't really, I wasn't really feeling the pattern that I was knitting, and that is this beautiful sock. And this is a colorway from Paper Crane Yarns, and if you don't know Paper Crane Yarns, it's a wonderful, beautiful hand-dyed yarn business and shop that's run by Ashley of the Paper Crane Yarns podcast, and she's just a wonderful friend of mine here in the knitting community, and I would definitely go check out her podcast if you haven't already. Check out her online shop, and she also has a brick and mortar shop too where she lives in her town, which I think is super cool. But this is her colorway Soleil, and it's a beautiful, beautiful colorway. And I remember when I first saw it, it was in the autumn, and I thought of it as harvest moon. I thought of all kinds of things, and obviously Soleil means sun. I'm not saying it right. I'm so sorry to all of you who are French speakers. But this sunshiny, beautiful, golden colorway just spoke to me and speaks to me so much. There are little speckles, and they're just such beautiful, small variations in color. The speckles are very subtle. Like, there aren't really speckles, but they're just kind of like little speckles of a little bit of richer orange here and there on a few stitches. It's just a gorgeous tonal yarn, and it gives me so much joy to look at this yarn and to knit on it. And the base is super soft and wonderful. I just love this yarn. And my yarn ball is kind of a little bit wonky, which is a shame because it should be beautiful to display this gorgeous yarn. But yeah, I ordered this when I was in the States, I think last time, or in the summertime or something. And I had this image of kind of harvest moon, and the moonshine, like the shine of the moon, the beautiful, like a kind of rich golden moon, if that makes sense. Which I think that's, I don't know, it's something that I just imagined, and I liked it, and I felt like I wanted that vibe. And obviously the Soleil colorway is kind of the opposite of the moon thing, but for some reason I haven't been able to let that go. So I wanted to kind of create a motif that reflected a full moon. And so I kind of started to experiment, and I'm not going to show you super up close. It's not very beautiful, my experimentations. But I sketched out a couple of charts. I tried knitting them. They were failures, and it failed and failed and failed. And I would just keep trying again and again. And finally, I started to kind of come to a motif that I really like and that I think proportionally reflects what I'm trying to go for. So these socks, I already have a name for them, and it fits so well to this motif, but I'm really I'm loving this sock. And when you wear the sock, obviously it's going to stretch out a little bit over your kind of leg and your foot, so it looks more round. But I think it's just a beautiful reflection of a moon, and like a full moon. I'm just in love with this motif and these socks, and I love the process of knitting lacy little cables into a sock. I think it elevates a sock and makes a sock feel so beautiful and so special and just so elegant and wonderful. I think knitting and wearing lace and cabled socks just feels so luxurious, and I love it. So that is my really favorite project at the moment. Actually, I can't say favorite because the next one I'm also in love with, but it's my favorite sock project of the moment for sure, and I can't wait to share it with you too. It's just so much fun. My my little socks here. I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to call these socks the Moon River socks because I just imagined, you know, a little river flowing down with little water textures and just kind of the beautiful kind of reflection in the water of a full moon. I love this song, Moon River, which I don't know if it's from Breakfast at Tiffany's, but that's the first time I heard it in Breakfast at Tiffany's, the film. And I know it's a book as well. I think it is a book or a play, but I only watched the movie. But I love this song, and I think it's so beautiful and just wonderful and romantic, and I think it fits this motif too. I think you can really see the river and the moon reflection. So these are the Moon River socks, the first sock of my Moon River socks, and I can't wait to have them finished and to share them with you. So, oh, and I just dropped my yarn, but yeah, I'm really excited about these, and I'm excited to finish the pattern, draft up the pattern, and maybe even share it with you and publish it too. So the last project I have to share with you now is another one which I shared with you briefly last episode, and it's one that I'm also enjoying a lot. First, I'm going to take a sip of tea. This is a mint tea I'm drinking today. It's 3 different mints, and it's so delicious. Oh, I love mint tea. It's kind of refreshing. I feel like mint tea is such a refreshing tea. Oh, and this cup belonged to Nick's grandparents, which is really special. It's very simple and lovely, but it kind of, I feel like, almost goes well with my Spearheads sweater today. In a way, it kind of fits, don't you think? Maybe I'm wrong. But that's my tea. Let me know if you're drinking something delicious. So here, also in my Noble Character Crafts bag, which is such a nice size, it held this sock and also this project, which is a little top that I'm knitting. This is a project that I'm knitting for the Welcome to Spring Knit-Along, which is hosted by Martina of the We Grow Wild Knitting podcast. She is such a lovely person, and it's so special to be partaking in this knit-along. I'm really enjoying it, and this knit-along is all about knitting with garments with plant-based yarn and all kinds of different plant-based yarn and fiber. And I have never before knit a project or a garment. I've knit projects, but not garments with plant-based yarn. I've knit like dishcloths, and I've knit a pair of socks with cotton yarns and yeah, different plant-based yarns here and there, but nothing like this before. And so I was really excited about this challenge. I had thought about it before, but it had never been in my, I don't know, it had seemed like something so daring and so something out of my comfort zone to knit a garment with plant-based yarn, because I don't have much experience with it, much knowledge about it, and I think that it seems like something that, I don't know, it just seemed outside of my realm, and I was really excited when this opportunity arose through Martina's podcast, and she just knits gorgeous things with plant-based yarn, all kinds of plant-based yarn too, linens, cottons, bamboo, eucalyptus, so many beautiful plant-based fibers. And so I ordered a yarn, which I also saw her knitting with because it looked so lovely, and it is the Beaumoul Lin by Drops. This is the darker brown colorway that I knit it with, and this is a yarn which is composed of 53% cotton and 47% linen, and it's a really lovely yarn. I'm really pleased with it so far. I really like it. I think the knitting process is comfortable, and I can't complain about it. Obviously, there's not the stretch and the give of wool. It's not like super soft or something, but it's not uncomfortable. It's very nice, and I think there's a certain light coolness about knitting with like a cotton linen, which I really find enjoyable. And I'm knitting it with wooden needles because I did find that the stitches tended to kind of slip off of the other needles, and this gives a little bit extra grip, which makes it very comfortable. And so I think knitting with cotton or linen, I don't know how other plant-based fibers are, but I think it's helpful to have wooden needles for that knitting process. But I'm also designing my own little top for this project. I wanted a kind of very simple, positive ease, almost a little bit oversized yoked top, which is very simple construction, but I wanted to have a bit of texture in the yoke, and I just wanted the process. I just kind of felt like experimenting with constructing my own garment. I've never done that before, like designing it from the beginning, knitting up a swatch and then measuring and doing all that kind of those calculations. I had never done that before. This is my very first time, but it's been fun so far. My little block in that has been that now I have come to a point where I need to separate for the sleeves, and I'm just somebody who kind of goes along. I've talked about being a gardener in my creative process more than an architect, so I'm kind of just going along and seeing what sticks, which sometimes isn't the best, especially when it comes to this, because now I need to figure out how many stitches I need to separate for the sleeves and how many stitches I then need to cast on in the body to make up for it. It's just kind of confusing, and I'm a little nervous about it, but I think I just need to sit down one afternoon and look carefully and do the math and then just move on, and then I'm gonna finish the sweater in no time, I think. That's just the final, that's kind of like the final big construction math piece of this project, and I think it's going to be a pretty quick knit after that because it's knit in this yarn, which is said to be a worsted weight yarn. It seems a little bit lighter than worsted weight to me, but yeah, it's said to be worsted, so it knits pretty quickly. And the gauge is also kind of looser gauge, not super loose, but definitely not a tight gauge. So this is what I have so far. It's textured, and I don't know how well you can see it, but I've kind of created just rows of little butterflies, very simple little lacy butterflies, and then little brambles. I've called it in my mind, the working title for this sweater or this top is the butterfly brambles, or brambles and butterflies, something like that top. Very literal, because it's exactly what I imagined and what I pictured as I designed this texture and this motif. Just lots of little tiny sweet little springtime butterflies and these kind of twigs and branches that are all kind of creeping around. And I love in summertime when you see butterflies fly and perch on branches, especially when they're all tangled up wild bushes. I just love how it looks when little butterflies sit there and then flutter off, because there's something so sweet and dainty and orderly about butterflies and moths to me. They're just so symmetrical in their shape and so light and airy, and then there's something so earthy and wild and just kind of free and kind of almost the opposite in a way about the beauty of like brambling branches and twigs and bushes. And I kind of think of it on the edge of the forest near where we live. There are just such wild growth that just grows in all directions, and I love it when those two things come together in a nature that happens so often. I think there's just such beauty in both those different aspects of nature, and in summertime that comes to life all the more because everything's just wild, in bloom, flourishing, and all the animals and all the insects are out to play. So that's what inspired this top, and I can't wait to share the finished project with you when I get there. Right now, yeah, it's still pretty cold out, but I'm hoping that I can wear it a little bit this spring and summer. Despite my growing belly, I'm going to knit it not super long. But what I wanted to ask also is if you have experience knitting with cotton or linen, how much does it shrink or not shrink after washing it? I blocked my piece, my swatch, but I read in some people's reviews of yarns like this that they have maybe added a few rows or not to length. Some people say the opposite. Some people I've seen also in this knit along on Instagram on the hashtag, people kind of not knitting it super long or knitting longer and then saying it's like it stretched out a little or it didn't stretch out. And I've never knit a garment with plant-based yarn, so I don't know what to expect, and just kind of thinking about that, but I think it'll be fine either way. I'm more just concerned that I'm not gonna be able to fit it over my stomach, or it's gonna be too high after that, because I definitely want to wear this when I'm not pregnant anymore. But yeah, that's my little garment project of the moment. I still have my Anne of Cleves by Alice Starmore, which is on the needles, but I haven't picked it up lately. I've been thinking about it a lot though. She comes and visits me in my mind, and sometimes I just think, oh, I need to go and spend some time with Anne of Cleves and just knit a few rows, but I haven't done it. Maybe one of these days I will. I'd love that. I really want to finish that sweater. It's such a gorgeous sweater, and I still love the yarn, but I just haven't gotten around to it. So before I go on to talk about personal things, I thought I would also mention plans I have, and I'm looking over here because right here is sitting a special object as well, which is a sewing machine, and that is my mother-in-law's sewing machine, a sewing machine that she hasn't used for a while. She is a very avid sewist, and she sews a lot. She sews a lot for Esmeralda, Esmeralda has lots of her wardrobe, which is from her grandmother, her Oma, Nick's mother, because she just sews so many things and such wonderful things, and she likes to sew children's clothes, but lots of other things too. She has also sewn for me a beautiful project bag, which I showed on this podcast as well. It's like a little sock project bag, and right now it's holding little bits and bobs for my patchwork knitted blanket, which I haven't knit on for a while either, but it's holding all those things. And so she's a really lovely sewist. And recently I kind of just started thinking about sewing. I have a couple of accounts that I've been following on Instagram that are sewing accounts. I sometimes even watch like sewing podcasts or sewing videos on YouTube because I'm really intrigued by sewing clothes. Back in high school, I sewed myself a dress, but it's been a very long time, and anything I learned and everything I learned I've already forgotten. But I just would really love to sew myself a little piece. And so I told this to my mother-in-law, and she was like, oh, you can borrow my sewing machine. I have a sewing machine of my own, but my sewing machine is like 50 years old. It's a very old sewing machine. I bought it at a flea market, and it works okay, but it can also have like little issues here and there. And as someone who's not very experienced with sewing at all, it can just kind of end up being a complete block for me as far as sewing. It just makes me not want to sew. So it was a really special thing that my mother-in-law offered to let me borrow her sewing machine. This is one she doesn't use very much anymore. I think she has another one. She's upgraded, and she also has a serger, and so she doesn't use this one. It's a very basic one. But I'm going to now experiment with some sewing, and so I'm really excited to share that with you. I don't have expectations that I'm going to become a huge, incredible, amazing sewer. I think that I probably am just going to dip my toe in it and just try a couple of things out, but there are a few objects of clothing that I've always dreamt of having and that I can't find, but that I think there are lots of sewing patterns for. Like, for example, I love wrap dresses, and I really love linen, and I love like double gauze cotton, those beautiful light fabrics. And first of all, I find that in ready-wear fashion in general, it's becoming harder and harder to find decent clothing which isn't like with synthetic fibers, and I know some of them are okay, but I love in summertime to wear like breathable cotton or linen. I think it's so lovely. And here where I live, there are not very many options for secondhand shopping, so if I want to shop secondhand, I mostly have to do it online, and that's always kind of tricky. And then also, if I buy from like a hand maker, it can be a lot more expensive, and I think that investment is 100% worth it. I have a couple of dresses, summer dresses, that I bought a couple of years ago that are still in perfect condition, and I've worn constantly through the summer, but that are that I bought from like hand makers on Etsy or online, and they were incredible investments. But right now, that's not in my budget. I can't afford to buy handmade clothes. So the alternative is that I make a couple of my own pieces. So I'm thinking about doing that, and I want to make a wrap dress or two. I found some really lovely patterns on Etsy by indie pattern designers. If you're a sewer, you probably already know them. I think one of them, or the main one whose patterns I've seen and have really fell in love with, is called, I think her name or her handle or her company name, brand name is Hubba Ding, which sounds super cute and super fun. I'll try to put a picture up so you can see. And she has just lovely kind of oversized, very simple patterns, and they seem to be pretty beginner friendly. She says they're beginner friendly. People have reviewed them and said that that was like their first dress. So I'm going to try knitting one or sewing one up for myself. And I've watched a couple of videos like how to start sewing and things like this, just totally basic videos. And I've heard that using sewing with simple non-stretch fabrics like linen or cotton or different like non-stretch fabrics like that is best for a beginner, and that's perfect for me because that's exactly what I want. I want those exact fabrics for these pieces I have in my mind. And so I talked to my mother-in-law about it, asked her what she thought, and she thought it would be a good idea to start with like a double gauze kind of muslin, just kind of a double gauze cotton muslin fabric for my first project because it's very affordable, and there's like, she found a really good deal on some like organic, beautiful muslin, and I'm going to get some and I'm going to share with you as I sew. And so I'm really excited about this process. And if it goes well for the first dress, which I'm not expecting it to go perfectly, I'm sure that there will be a few little hiccups here and there, but if it goes okay, I'm going to try to sew myself a couple of other dresses as well, especially for like maternity and postpartum time. I think wrap dresses are just perfect for that. So I'm just super thrilled. And if you are a sewer, if you are a sewist, you like to sew, please share with me any tips you have, any ideas you have. I'm really a complete beginner. It's been so long since I've sewed anything, and my knowledge is absolutely the very basic, bare basics. I'm so thankful that I have someone who I can talk to about the process and who can kind of guide me. I'm probably going to be cutting out pattern pieces and cutting out fabric with my mother-in-law there the first time because I'm just nervous about the whole process. It's something I'm really new at, and in general I'm not super detail oriented, and I feel like sewing is something that seems like it's much more detail oriented than knitting it might be in certain cases. I'm not sure, but it's a really exciting adventure. If you are a sewing person, if you're a sewist, please let me know too. This is kind of a random, kind of weird question, but how much time would you say it takes you to make one piece of clothing? Because I think it must be much more quick than it is to knit an object of clothing, but I'm not sure. I'm really such a beginner, and I have no idea. Tell me anything you know, any experience you have. I'd love any advice, because I'm really this is my very first time really trying to properly sew something and sew a piece of clothing that I hope to wear a lot and to have, in my wardrobe as a piece of my wardrobe that I wear, all through the season, and hopefully for a while, hopefully for a few seasons as well, because it's always nice to get a lot of wear out of something if you spend time making it. But anyway, that's all I have to share with you creative wise. Now I'm just gonna take another sip of tea and sit back and just kind of give you a little update. I've talked so much now. After speaking so much, I feel like I have to just be silent for a while, but it's been so funny because I felt like in the last few months since I got pregnant, I've been a little bit sporadic in my online presence, in my podcasting and my sharing on social media, and in a way it's good. I've definitely learned that there are certain boundaries that I have and a certain balance that I like to strike and need to strike for myself in order to feel connected to my life where I am. And I'm a very, I'm someone who's very, sensitive and kind of live in other places, and so it's important for me to stay rooted and connected to where I am. And so cutting off from social media consistently is really important for me, and having strong boundaries in that has been really good for me and wonderful, but I've missed certain parts of that world, and I have so many drafts of blog posts and ideas that I want to share and that I want to hear your opinion on and just chat with you about and be in communication about. So I'm hoping that now in the next few weeks I can get into a better rhythm of just kind of on my blog, but also here on YouTube and on my podcast, just consistently being in conversation and sharing with you and hearing from you in the realm of handcrafts and creativity and slow living and all those kinds of things that I really enjoy, and that I know a lot of other people also enjoy. It's been so special to create friendships through this platform and through even social media, and so I'm hoping that I can just kind of get back in a rhythm where I'm more connected to that, because I felt like I've missed some of this community in the last few months as I haven't been as consistently present. It's been good to take a break from weekly podcasting and to kind of podcast every 2 weeks, also because I'm looking at my knitting. I don't have a huge amount of knitting that I've been doing since I was pregnant and was ill for a couple of months there, it's taken a while for me to get back in the rhythm and the flow, and now more and more I am kind of getting back in the groove of things. So yeah, I want to just be more present the next few months and few weeks and reconnect, and I'm thankfully feeling so good in my pregnancy now. Yeah, I feel a lot better, and the baby's growing like crazy. Like, it's really, I've said this like 3 times, but my stomach is like so big all of a sudden, and I know it's just gonna get bigger and bigger. But I'm really so thankful that the baby is growing well, and we found out that it's probably a girl, but the doctor couldn't 100% tell, but she said 90% chance it's a girl. So it's probably going to be a second little girl that we're having, and she's just growing so much, and she's kicking all the time, and it's really such a special time in this pregnancy. I feel like I'm connecting with her and getting to know her every day in this process, which is just really special and so wonderful. And Esmeralda and I talk a lot about her, and she's like, points at my belly and says like, baby sister, and she is just so a part of it and so excited about it, and it's just such a wonderful time right now. And I love this kind of experience of carrying new life, growing life, as spring is beginning to kind of emerge. All the little flower petals are coming up. I'm starting to see the wild herbs that are growing, and I'm really excited to forage a bit, because a few weeks ago I was just seeing and hearing a lot of people talking about their foraging, and in a lot of different places, like even in Germany, people were getting like so much nettle, for example, which nettle is something I think is very common and a very good beginner foraging herb, wild herb. There's Sagwa, he's sitting there in case you can hear him. But there was no nettle here growing, and this is where I live. There's tons of wild garlic and lots of different things to forage, but there was none, and now I'm starting to see little tiny heads popping through, and it makes me so excited, and it's so wonderful, and I just have so many recipes I want to try, and I just want to spend more time outside. And today it's a pretty cloudy day and a little bit rainy, so I was excited to record this podcast, but otherwise I've just been so enjoying being outside. And so yeah, that's all I have to say, really. I just wanted to share that. I feel like I've missed this community, and it's so good whenever I get to connect with you and just be here and in conversation. It just makes me so happy and fills my heart, and I'm hoping to get back into a better rhythm in the next few weeks. Also in blogging, I love to blog. I know that's not everyone's thing to kind of read blogs, but I love just kind of using it as a journal, processing there, sharing different ideas there, and so I'm hoping to get back into that too, just kind of a journal also of the next couple of months. Yeah, I hope that you're doing well. Let me know what you are inspired by right now, and like I said, what you're knitting. I always get so much inspiration from reading what other people are working on, other people's projects. I think it's so exciting. So please share with me. Until next time, I hope you have a wonderful week or two. I hope that you get lots of knitting done and have lots of cozy time, whether that be indoors if you are heading into autumn, or whether that be outdoors if spring is finally coming alive in your area. Maybe it's still pretty cold and wintry, in which case I'm still wishing you cozy knitting wherever you may be and whatever you may be up to. I can't wait to catch up with you again soon. Okay, take care. Bye.